Tensa Machuhunitziasun, Soto First Nation Uchinia. I am so honored and thankful to be here with you all today. The older I get, the more that I appreciate the value of time, and it's just the one thing that I can never repay. So my prayer this morning was to be able to offer you enough in exchange for that. Last year, this time exactly, this conference exactly, right in the middle was when we shifted into what we're all living in right now with COVID and rules and guidelines and stuff. And last year, this was my thinking. I was like, this is great. I'm gonna have a whole month to catch up on things. And then next month, when things go back together, go back to normal, that I'm gonna look like a rock star all over town. And so that's what I do. I execute my plan for the first month. Done, awesome. We head into the second month and I'm like, okay, I pick up a couple hobbies. I'm trying to golf, doesn't go well. I'm trying to rollerblade, even worse. And then I pick up projects that I've, put down for a while. And then we move into month three. Month three, I am struggling. I just have some dark days, and I can recognize that I'm plummeting. And I'm going through something, and COVID does this to me. Coronavirus, it almost takes me out, but never because I'd ever gotten sick, but because it forced me to have to be with myself. And every single year, the beginning of every single year, my family, we do this thing where we write our goals together and then we share them. And so it looks sort of like this. Actually, I'll just show you mine. That's mine right there. Marissa's, oopsies. How do I do this? Marissa's 2021 goals. And we do that, and then we pick a theme, and then we pick goals that correspond with that, and then we support each other. It's one of my favorite things to do. And last year, 2020, my theme was self-love. I was going to choose myself no matter what. If I felt guilty, whatever, I choose me. If I feel bad, whatever, I choose me. If no one understands, whatever, I choose me. I knew that no matter what the situation was going to be, I was going to have control. And I was always going to choose me, even if it meant stepping away from people that I cared about. Both my parents, my mom and my dad, are residential school survivors. And the uncertainty of last year really took me back to a place as a child and experiencing all those cold and dark and lonely times. I was not prepared for the craziness of the year and how it would ultimately unearth so many different things for me. And it was things that I thought I'd long dealt with, and it was things that I was growing into at that time. And, I had some dark moments here. And I had to convince myself, this is literally what I said. The entire world stopped moving, stopped functioning, stopped working so that I could heal. I could work my shit out. That is what I convinced myself last year. And I roll with it. I'm here. I'm fully committed to learning about myself. I'm fully committed to learning where I come from, who I am, what I wanted to be, what I like, what I don't like, just starting from the basics, starting from zero. I don't even know what a boundary is at this point. And I discovered my job on Antoine. And Antoine, he is born 100 years before me in 1888. And he's born in the frog moon like me and late in the month just like me. And I just feel this instant connection to Antoine. And I start to read all of these stories that he left behind. And for the most part of my life, my grandparents had passed when I was very, very young, and I didn't know any of them. And through these stories, so much of these spaces were being filled in. And I'm introduced to his mom and his dad. And his mom's name was Many Birds, and his dad's name was He Sings Alone. And He Sings Alone would eventually be translated into English, and that's still the name that my father carries, is Lone Singer. And I'm introduced to so much of my family here. And he talks about all these really cool stories, like places that hills weren't called, and bodies of water that are not called that anymore, but like the names for places like Kindersley and Carrabert, and the way that he talks about the grass dance, and the way that his war stories, amazing. And I'm introduced to the women and the men in my family here, and the women I come from, I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to explain other than they're magic. There's no words to describe these women, and you'll understand if you ever get a chance to read these stories. One of the women I come from, she was a widower, and she'd had many offers of marriage, and she said, "I'll marry the man who brings me the scalp of the enemy who killed my husband." And a whole raid of Cree warriors, they go out and they take this challenge, and they're looking for this man. It says the name in the book, but I'm not gonna go there. So Red Feather, he ends up using wit and courage, and he presents this gift to her. He presents her this scalp, and she wipes her tears with the hair that's still attached to the scalp. And that was her minimum requirement for a partner. And she would reciprocate by holding ceremony and celebrating him, and they would sing and dance for 4 days later. There was this internal shift that took place when I understood that I stem from women like this. And I start to ask, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, what if by some miracle, I don't know, long shot, I don't know, whatever, I'm gonna wish on any star I see, maybe some way, the energy of my ancestors is still somehow able to buzz through me. And I start asking myself, Mar, what if your minimum requirement was respect? Marrisa, what if your minimum requirement was honesty? Mar, what if your minimum requirement is giving yourself a fighting chance? And I'm just captured by all these stories, and I keep reading. Witetumon, she is my Japan. She walked from Great Falls, Montana to Red Pheasant, Saskatchewan during the time of signing the treaties. And she led a group of people, and one of the people in this group was a baby. And this baby was too small to walk, so she had to carry him on her back. And she would lead this group only by the memory of the land, because she was blind. And the story talks about how there's this certain body of water that they have to cross, and with Tetamon, she describes it, and they take her there, and it's the one place that they're able to cross where the water wasn't above their knees. And it talks about how raw her shoulders were from carrying the baby. And I'm able to sit back and dissect the story later, and I'm writing down the names of all my ancestors, and I realized that walk wasn't just for the people she was leading that day. That walk was for my son and my daughter. It was for my children who sit in that seventh generation later. The last Friday of February, my son comes home, and he has he looks like he's got a clean shave on his head. And that day, our older son, he was in his first theater performance. So my husband and I, we were supporting him, and we'd gotten home late that night. And my sister, who was managing my home that night and just taking care of the kids, that was the first thing she said. She was like, "Hey, I know you had a big day, but Ari came home with some hair missing, and I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to ruin that celebration for his older brother." And so we walk in, we see him, and we completely forget about the beautiful night we just had. And we see him, and he's scared, and we're scared, and he doesn't feel good, and we don't feel good. And we check our email after we hear, we're hearing these stories from him. We check our email to see if, his teacher offered more insight, and we didn't get anything. And Ari would tell us a couple instances at school that things that have happened, and he doesn't want to go back. So Monday we finally are in contact with his teacher, and she isn't actually able to offer any insight, and she didn't even notice he was missing any hair. So the next day we're scheduled to speak with someone else, and at the end of that meeting, we also know then for sure that we're not sending our son back to school. And, we feel sick. We're sick. Like this is just taking so much from us. I can't even form a thought to come out of my mouth. Like I'm so cloudy and we're just paralyzed. We decided we were going to take our son out, and we were just going to love on him, and we were going to give him a big relaxing day, and we were just going to give him all of our attention. The first thing that happened when we walked right into the building is a lady was like, "You and your daughter can sit here." And my son, he grabs my leg and he just hugs it a bit, and I look down at him, and I can see him trying to smile, but trying to hold back his tears. And I'm just like, this is literally everywhere. My sons are misgendered on a daily basis. And both of my sons are so used to explaining that they're a boy that it just doesn't bother them anymore. And my son is 7. So that just nothing sits right with me. I'm so confused, and I have so many questions, and I feel like everyone is speaking without me in the room. I know my son. This is an average day in my home. This is an average day, and if you've been in my home, then you know as well. Every day, our day starts at 5:30. My husband journals, reads, and meditates, and in that time as well, my son's already worked out and they're showered, and we all get to share breakfast together. And around that 7 o'clock mark, my smaller kids wake up, and then Pat does breakfast, and he's packing their lunches, and I'm braiding hair, and we'll smudge, and we send them out, and we give them a few moments every day in the morning before we give ourselves to our work. And then supper time is the same thing. We try to do supper together every single day, but at supper, we do this thing where there's no devices allowed at the table, and each person in my family, we talk about our favorite part of the day. And every night, we read. Currently, we're reading Harry Potter, but we read to our children every single night, and then we smudge and we pray with them. And before I'm in Alberta right now, and in December is kind of when everything changed quite a bit because our cases were through the roof. And prior to that, we did a one day of the week where we committed time to our children individually. And sometimes that just looked like going for a drive to get a Slurpee, or going for a walk, or going to buy a new book, or, you know, just really simple, and didn't take long. And we just committed to being with the kids like that. So I know my son has so much support, and not just here at home. He has support in his community, with my job, with the dance troupe, with the Indigenous organizations that we work with. There's so much love, and he has so much extended family and relatives, and those few people that we talked to about this situation poured so much love into us this month. And when we decided to work outside of our positions for Palatines and what we were trying to build there, we knew that we had to promise each other that we could never compromise the children, and however that they needed us, no matter what our positions needed from us. That was always going to be the priority. When we're talking to administration, we're met with things like every child cuts their hair. I had to explain a personality type that explained how someone could miss my son not having hair. And you know, we're just defeated at this point. We're scheduled to do a virtual Zoom for the exhibit that my husband and I had curated, and that was in the museum in Red Deer. So that week we had so many different school divisions come, and those school divisions sat through the tour, and we just talked about regalia and powwow and culture, and you know, we try to throw as much information in there as we possibly can. And it's for a few thousand students. So we're ready for that the day after we know my son's not. This is Wednesday. We're gonna do that. We start that. I'm not in the mood to do it. I wake up and I realize that I have no clean clothes. And you know, my mood goes from bad to worse. And like, obviously, like, I'm not cooking this week, I'm not cleaning, I'm not laundering, I'm like, can't even function. And so I wear a ribbon skirt on a daily basis. If you see me, you'll see me in a skirt. This day I put on pants. And my thinking then was, okay, I need to wear a shirt that I still rep in. And so I look, there's nothing, there's one left, I put it on. And I don't give it two thoughts. I put it on and I ran out the door. We do our session, we do our Zoom. It's great. By the end of that day, we get a phone call. You know, this shirt that I was wearing upset someone. And the shirt that I put on that day, man, I'm not even gonna say who made it. His name's Chris Grab. He makes these shirts for Think and Dig, and these shirts are beautiful, and they also support some of the other work that he does as well with youth, and that's beautiful. I'll support that any day. My family, we own every single one of them. One year I got custom ones for my daughter and my niece. I own all of them, and I wear them everywhere without any backlash from anything. So this day I wear this shirt, and it has John A. McDonald on it, and the John A. McDonald has some arrows on his head, and this upset someone who was on that Zoom. And this person didn't think to contact Pat or myself to deal with that. They went to the highest level of administration, and that would trickle back down to us, to Pat. And after that phone call, I knew immediately that that was not a shirt that I could wear when working alongside this group. I learned a couple things that day. The first thing is how quickly and fast and stern and effective any system can be when something doesn't sit right with them. It took a week of hell and confusion and tears. Man, I swear to God, I couldn't even open my eyes. We were sick. Our kids were scared too, because we just didn't know how to function. It took them to the end of the working day to get back to me about a situation that didn't sit right with them. we weren't afforded the opportunity to make this a learning curve the way that I felt like that was required of us for my son. I would compromise him again on account of me being the most helpful and useful and productive person. But they would never do that for my son in this situation. You know, I just felt defeated. I felt like this work, all this time, everything I'm learning, everything I'm fighting for, this is in vain, because this is not just school. This is everywhere my kids go. And I'm just like, we felt the urgency to protect whoever was upset, because the situation regarding my son was also being dealt with under the same administration that let me know I couldn't wear that shirt. And I had to drag myself, as hard as that was, and my son back into that building to talk to people and to fight and to advocate and to make sure that we were heard. And they still didn't understand. They just still didn't treat it like it was urgent. And we weren't afforded that option to turn this into a learning curve. And, you know, it wasn't a second thought for us to be respectful and to take a considerate route in regards to the situation with my son. The way that person handled it, without just even courtesy, common courtesy. You know, that's a terrifying thought. Just, I hope, and I hope to goodness, like I hope that person was upset because of the disgusting, inhumane, terrible things that John A. MacDonald have done to my people and to this land. I don't know that I would consider someone rooted in ideas like that or behavior like that. You know, I don't know that you're a good candidate to lead or to speak into my child. That doesn't equate safety to me. Right away, we knew that this is bigger than just my son. Yeah, we can take him out, but what does that look like for every single other person, every other Indigenous student that walks those halls? And not just in this school, but every other place. And, you know, who's protecting them? What supports do those kids have? You know, if there are any. And back to that, we're just completely defeated. Friday comes again, and we are in this for about a week, and I'm barely getting out of bed. I drag myself into my office, and I'm here, but I'm not here. And I log into my work accounts for social media and like my email, and I have a lot of stuff, and I'm a little bit concerned at first, and I open them, and it's all love. There's so much joy and happiness, and parents and kids. We had a kid who she didn't leave her room for over a month, and her Zoom class, when she was in the Zoom with us, she was able to bring out her dress, and then she was able to take her dress and show her friends, but she put it on,
And that felt like a victory. And there's other messages from kids in our community whose parents I get to hang out with and see and be and hang out with, and they let us know how much their children needed this and enjoyed this. And I took all these messages and I copied and pasted them and I put them in my phone, and I look at these probably every day, but especially in these moments when I feel like I'm not built for this job, or I am not the person to be here and to support. And I look at this and I know why I'm here, and I know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and why it's important, why I can't stop. And I just go back to these stories despite everything, despite the grief and hopelessness, and against all odds, I'm still able to witness the courage and the fearlessness of my ancestors in these stories. And I don't have an answer. I don't have a long-term solution how to protect these children, but I know that safety should have always been a minimum requirement. And safety should have been the minimum requirement for my daughter and for my son and for me and my siblings, but my mom and my dad and my kakam and my mushroom. Safety is the minimum, and I have to walk toward that. 7 generations ago, my Japan, she walked 708 kilometers by the memory of the land so that my family could exist here. With that one, Wapagasis, Bee Bear, she comes with the wind. Victoria, Lydia, Carol, Nia. My name is Bad Owl, and my dad told me not to say it because it might scare people. But I am a messenger, and I am a messenger for my people and for braid boys and girls and for my troop kids who have just given me so many reasons to be better and to give more and to push through. For the rest of the time that I have here, I commit to healing and doing and being and carrying all that I can for the next 7 the way that these women have done for me. And I feel like I have wings. And I'm coming with all the messages that these people don't want to hear. I am so thankful for your time today, and I am so thankful to have been able to sit with you all. Thank you all for your time. I hope you found value in our exchange today. Hey.